Welcome to Bounce Back Stronger, the podcast that explores ways to find peace and purpose no matter what happens. I'm your host, Donna Ferris, and today I'm welcoming back Julie Wright, Chief Sleep Orchestrator and founder of We Sleep. A little about Julie. Julie is the author of The Natural Sleeper and has dedicated her career to helping people overcome insomnia and poor sleep quality through natural, complementary, and holistic approaches. She's here to share practical ways to rethink our relationship with sleep, especially when anxiety itself can feel like a valid response. Julie, it's so good to be with you again. What have you been up to since we talked last year? I think it was April.
Yeah, last spring.
Yeah.
And they say time flies, but it's just ridiculous at the moment for me. Also, because I think our lifestyles have changed for a lot of us. Anxiety levels have increased, just so much stuff going
Hmm.
on in the world, and things keep going faster and faster. What's great about today's topic on anxiety is that I've gone through it myself. And this is how my insomnia started and got me started on the whole journey on how to improve sleep for myself at first and now sharing the knowledge. So I absolutely love what I do in the sense of that's a real purpose. And I really, truly want to help people sleep better. And so there are different causes, and sleep is such a complex thing, and it really depends on a lot of external and internal factors. So when we last spoke, which was last spring, since then, my book, The Natural Sleeper, has been translated in Spanish, French, and Portuguese, which is obvious. It's
Hmm.
just helping spread the message beyond the US, the UK, and English speaking territory. So that's been really great. And what else has happened? Oh, launched a podcast as well myself, actually,
Oh, that's
in
great.
collab. Yeah, it's called Sleep Tonic Podcast. And I'm doing this in collaboration with a psychologist named Christina Lindsay. She's in Los Angeles. So it's also quite interesting because I'm obviously UK or Europe based and she's US. And what we realize is that for most modern or Western civilization, if you will, people are going through the same thing in terms of being able to manage anxiety and sleep better. So, in fact, France and the US are the worst at that, by the way.
Oh,
By the
that's
way,
interesting.
that is interesting. And since then, what else? I'm working on sleep tracks. I've recorded one, and there's been like demand for me utilizing my voice. Apparently, it's very sleep conducive, very
I think it's
relaxing.
lovely.
It's one thing because I have an accent as well, because I grew up in France and I've been living in the US and now the UK. But I never considered or thought about my voice being an instrument to help people sleep better. So I've been told this so many times that, yeah, I'm preparing quite a few sleep tracks that people can listen to fall asleep. What else? Yeah, some magazine interviews, always great to
Mm.
be called into. It goes anywhere from bedding to more managing sleep later in life around menopause or so the topics are really broad. And I am almost certified as a health coach as well. So I decided I want to broaden my understanding of the body, anatomy, biology, physiology, and cross fingers. I've done all the exams now. I'm waiting for the results. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I
great.
studied with the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London, who specializes also in natural ways to achieve better health. And so that's great because it coincided with what I'm trying to convey as a message to the world, which is you don't need or you shouldn't need supplements or medication prescriptions to sleep better because all of the chemistry or the pharmaceuticals are already in your body, your brain and your body produce it. So, of course, it's the big three around sleep, nutrition, and I'm missing one, sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Yeah. And so these are obviously quite important pillars. And it's really fascinating to learn that being healthy and coaching people around healthy lifestyles, it's very much connected to sleep and vice versa. So it's all connected. So a lot of the advice that you would have heard around nutrition or
Mm.
exercise will apply for sleep as well as the basics. But of course, people want like tricks and hacks and help and programs to help them. And so that's why I wanted to become a health coach as well, so that I can provide like a 360 view on what people are going through when they can't sleep well. Yeah, and what else? I'm working on a signature program as well. So it's just so it would be, it's just virtual, but like classes, if you will, a program probably 6 to 12 weeks, depending. Yeah, stay tuned.
That's amazing. That's amazing. With the anxiety in the body, what are the metabolic or how does it work in terms of affecting sleep? And is there certain types of food that we should avoid? Like I find myself when I have sugar at night in any way, even if it's hours before I go to sleep, it really affects my sleep. Is that
Mhm.
sound familiar to you at
Very
all?
familiar,
Yeah.
both in the sense of, so having sugar craving, let's dive
Hmm.
into that one. And there are nutrition experts around that. It's very difficult to give up sugar. We become quite addicted to it. So when our sugar levels drop in our bloodstream, the body is going to just be looking for food. And this is why you get such craving, because it says, you must reestablish a sufficient blood sugar level so that your body can function. And then at the same time, when you do eat these sweets, sugars, especially processed sugars, but it's true of most sugars as well, insulin is released, and then your cortisol, which is the stress hormone, levels drop. And then you have issues around regulating and balancing your cortisol hormone. And also all your central nervous system is going to be a bit confused. So ideally what you want to do is keep your blood sugar level quite stable, because if it's too low or too high, there will be a reaction. And the reaction is, I'm hungry. I must get food right now.
Hmm.
I'm in danger. I need strength to get out of a dangerous situation. And then you can't help it almost.
Does it wake you up if you had it at night? Well, is that part of the reason we're having these 3 o'clock in the morning
Absolutely,
spikes?
because
Yeah.
the brain and the body is prioritizing you having enough food, period, not just enough sugar or just food in general, but also being prepared to deal with danger. And so if you're very stressed and anxious, you bring that anxiety and that stress into your sleep. It doesn't stop, it's still there. To some degree, the brain's going to try and work on processing some of that anxious information, and it may manifest in different ways. It could people have such a pleasant dream that they feel quite soothed. It could be that they have a nightmare because the brain's trying to figure out how to deal with a particular issue. And it just should be that just physiologically, maybe you didn't eat enough for the day,
Hmm.
or if you've eaten too much sugar, then the boost of cortisol will just start increasing before bedtime, and you'll be asleep, but still with high levels of cortisol, which will impact your sleep because your body's going to say, wait a minute, I've got to wake up and find food. So it's triggers and signals, and everything that I'm talking about is about balancing hormones, balancing neurotransmitters, even in the brain. And so balance is what you strive for. If you have a balanced diet, especially when you want to avoid those spikes in terms of cortisol and blood sugar level, but balancing your food with more protein be very helpful with that. And it doesn't have to be meat, it could be vegan protein as well. And while you manage the amount of sugar you're actually eating. And also things like, I recommend also cinnamon. So that's a
Mm.
really good one to curb sugar cravings. So if you're going to have your yogurt or whatever dessert, you might sprinkle some of that. And of course, you want to stay away from stimulants.
Mm.
Coffee, black tea, even decaf coffee is a little tricky. It depends on your sensitivity to caffeine. Cigarettes, Red Bull, like anything that's strong in stimulant, especially caffeine. I think chocolate also has, but it's all about quantity. If you have a little bit of chocolate, it shouldn't really impact you. But yes, what else? Alcohol,
Mm.
which is not only rich in sugar, but will really, it's going to make you fall asleep at first because it's quite sedative. Alcohol is sedative, but further down the line, as you process, which takes about 3, 4, 5 hours for the body to process alcohol, you're going to deal with issues with adrenaline release and cortisol. Your body temperature goes up, and so it makes it difficult to fall asleep. So yeah, I could go on, but yes, just to answer your question, nutrition absolutely matters. Balancing your hormones and sugar levels will make a huge difference with that. And yes, it's quite normal to wake up in the middle of the night if we're stressed, anxious, or if we've had too much sugar in our diet for the day.
That's great. And maybe let's look at that time in the middle of the night. Like when you wake up like that, what is the best thing to do when that happens? What would you suggest for somebody?
The one thing that everyone must remember is that a lot of reasons as to why you're not staying asleep have to do with what you did during your day. So it's really start by reflecting and thinking, what was the trigger? What did I do today that's different? And maybe start investigating on what the possible causes or what you're particularly sensitive about. One great way to figure that out is also just to stop anything that could be stimulating or affecting this balance that I'm talking about and reintroducing them one by one so you can start identifying what is your trigger. It could be caffeine. Maybe you drank coffee too late. It could be that you didn't get enough sunlight, which helps you produce melatonin, which will keep you asleep throughout the night, and you didn't spend enough time outdoors. It could be stress at work, elevating your cortisol levels, but you haven't flushed that cortisol out your body. So it's still there, ready to deal with stress, anxiety, danger, but you're trying to sleep. So it could be that. Definitely could be nutrition as well. For some people who are not used, for example, to eat spicy foods, that might just disturb their digestion. And generally, when the digestion is not going well, that's going also to be a trigger for poor sleep. So first think about what happened in your day. And by the way, as a sleep coach, that's what I work on, just investigating and understanding what is the person's lifestyle and choices and making them aware of maybe habits they've had, which lead them to a poor night's sleep. Now,
Totally makes sense. What do I do in that moment? I guess is the hard part.
first step, think about your day, make note, and avoid these things going forward because then you might
Yeah.
not even wake up. And then when you're in bed not sleeping, there are definitely things that you can do that might work for some people and not for others. That's number one that you must remember. And the first thing that I investigate as a sleep coach is trying to figure out if the stress and anxiety is psychological or physiological or perhaps even medical, because then you know what to do accordingly. So if it is psychological, which about 50% of clients who come to me or attend my workshop, 50% of these people can't stay asleep because their mind is just going mad, thinking about all sorts of stuff. Just things that are not going to help you
Yeah.
sleep, but are also quite mundane.
Yeah.
So the first idea is, first of all, to work out what the issue is. I like to start with the body. So anything that has to do with relaxation and specifically for sleep, because meditation, for example, is great and it's going to make you calm down and it's not meant to be putting you to sleep necessarily. So techniques around body scanning, yoga nidra, breath work, and progressive muscular relaxation, which is classes that I give as well for that. It's when you contract and release your body, going from head to toe and or vice versa, from toe all the way to your head, body part by body part, contract, release, breathe. So this is like a technique that I also show. So these are good. They work for a lot of people. Autogenics also work very well. And these are around sensations in the body and also isolating different parts of your body. And what this does is that it focuses your brain on doing the exercises. So number one, you put all the noise in your head aside because you're doing that exercise. You can do that in your bed laying down. And it also calms your nervous system. So anything that has to do with quieting the nervous system will work right then and there. And it's something that you can do in your bed. There are also some like really unconventional techniques, which I show and teach, which are like neutral thinking. So it's, for example, picking a word that doesn't really have a connotation and you would repeat that word over and over, for example. There's also a technique around keeping your eyes wide open. So lights out in your bed, stare at the ceiling, no reading, no light, no, just you, quietness in your bed, looking up straight up at the ceiling and forcing yourself to keep your eyelids open as long as you can. And that's proven to really work very well with insomniacs. But often it's a combination of things. So it's the perfect alchemy and the perfect combination. So that's what I would work on as a sleep coach, is trying to figure out, because everyone's really different in terms of what works for them or what they're going through. And then they're different. And also one thing that might work one night may not work the following night, and then you get all frustrated. So it's really building a toolkit of these techniques that could be really helpful. Now, if you're still not asleep after some of the techniques that I've just explained, and you don't want to deal with what's in your brain, you just want to fall back asleep. Another thing is also to look at body temperature, because our body temperature needs to drop. So I think it's 1 or 2 Celsius degrees, and it's like between 1 and 3 in Fahrenheit. And so then you have to leave your bed and go sit maybe in your lounge or somewhere else that's cooler and just wait and allow your core body temperature to drop a little bit, and then go back to sleep when you start feeling sleepy again. Your eyes start twitching and feel dry, for example. So yeah, so there's more. I'm just giving you a few of the
That's
ones.
great.
My go-to are progressive muscular relaxation and breath work. Because even if I feel anxiety in the day, I will stop paying attention at my breath. So I'm going to ask you, Donna, right now, think about how you're breathing. I'm going to say nothing. So it's okay. How is your breath right now? And anybody who's listening, do that exercise. Just stop and just think about how you're breathing, and you find that maybe your breathing has stopped or is very shallow, really small. Maybe it's hyperventilation when you breathe a lot, for example. Just pay attention, because that will be a good indication as to whether you're specifically anxious or stressed. And so if you reopen your airways by breathing through your stomach, in so inhaling through the nose, breathing out through the mouth, and using your abdomen, your stomach, to push that air out and then make space for it, and do that very slowly, you'll find that within sometimes seconds or minutes, you can just feel better, calmer. And that's something you can do in bed also. So all these techniques really are somatic techniques. They're about the body, not so much about the brain. And I think sometimes it's just the best way, because we are going to go through a lot of stress and anxiety. And so these go-to techniques don't even involve you digging into why you're even feeling that way.
Yeah, and I
So,
think we can get into a negative spiral about why can't I sleep? It's almost the shaming of ourselves, I think. So I like getting into the body. I think that's a smart thing. One of the things
mhm.
I heard recently was the rapid eye movement one. So going from left to right or right to left, and that stimulates a deep breath. So I like that one too. That actually works for
Mhm.
me. Just a quick,
Yes, so EMDR, and it's like
yeah,
eye movement therapy, which is used for people experiencing trauma as well.
trauma. Yeah.
Because this rapid eye movement is something very natural that we all do as mammals. We all do in our sleep, which is also the dream stage. So when your eyes are moving like this, you're almost awake, but not quite, but you're also dreaming. But REM, rapid eye movement, is particularly important for dreaming and processing emotions, including anxiety and stress. And it's interesting that it's been brought into therapeutic techniques to deal with trauma, because you're basically putting yourself in a stage where you can start healing and retraining your brain around certain thoughts that could be quite debilitating. And neuro-linguistic programming also works well for that. And emotional freedom therapy, so EFT, also called tapping, is really good for that as well, because it's combining the thoughts with the language, with certain points, sensitive points in our bodies. So mostly it's like head, chest, etc. That could also help you release some of these emotions and allow you to sleep better. And that, for example, is something you can do anywhere at any time, whether you're in the tube commuting or you're in your bed and you can't fall back asleep. So these techniques are very easy, can be done in bed, as I just said now, and they won't go into the whole psychology of why am I feeling this way. But I really recommend that people do that work, though. The two together are a great
Mm.
combination. So talking therapy, CBT, the more traditional therapies are essential as well, because it gets you to figure out what's causing the anxiety and what can you do about it.
And one of the things you talked about was the cortisol release, and that's an
Mm-hmm.
exercise piece. We haven't really talked through that. But I was listening to one psychologist that said when people are going through anxiety, you're getting this fight and flight thing. And like you said, your body is building up with all this tension that needs to be released.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in her practice, she has people doing burpees and jumping jacks and stuff to get rid of it. What do you recommend for people? Obviously, you're not going to do that in the middle of the night, but you
Well, you
could, but
can.
you could,
That's
you
what
could,
that's
depending
what's
on how
eh,
quiet, where if you can find a quiet place to do it.
exactly, if you could go outside or something, but like, why not? If really you're at that stage where you're such a heightened level of anxiety, so start with the breath, that's number one. And then, yeah, moving, exercising, and because this will also help raise your body temperature. Then when you stop, your body temperature drops, and it helps the body. The body takes that as a cue that it's time to sleep and start orchestrating all your neurochemicals in that way. So it could be useful. Yeah, absolutely. That's why some people sleep much better when they exercise. And really, if you want to think about this, you have to go back into our ancestors and just life as humans, where we'd wake up, get out of our cages and hunt for food, or maybe forage and get things that we could eat or heal ourselves with. And so we had a very outdoorsy, active lifestyle. So now, with our modern way of living, we don't leave the house too much. We're not exposed to enough daylight. We don't move as much. We sit as opposed to walk or run even. But that's the issue, because the brain and the body haven't changed much since thousands of years, maybe even hundreds of thousands of years. It's the same brain, it's the same body, but our lifestyle is completely different now. And so therefore, the body hasn't quite adapted to this new way of living. And this is why exercising, especially outdoors, so you've got the light helping you producing vitamin D, serotonin for feeling good, and endorphin also. And down the line, especially serotonin goes through a metabolic process and becomes melatonin, and melatonin goes to your brain and it pays attention to the light level. Is it bright or is it starting to dim down? What's the color of the light? And then it sends a cue that it's time to go to sleep. And then you start yawning, your eyes might be just a bit dry, your energy level goes down, you calm down. And that's the process that we should do. And instead, we do the opposite. We go out, we drink, we smoke, we party, we go on social media, we watch Netflix, we do video games, and we worry about the next day, we worry about the future. It's just like, how can you sleep when these basics are not even covered?
Yeah. Are you finding, because we alluded to this in the beginning, but are you finding people are struggling with sleep more recently than maybe in the past, or they're just recognizing it more, or
I think it's a combination of both.
yeah.
People are recognizing it more, so they talk about it more. Sleep has become, and it took a while, but it's become one of the recognized pillars for good health. Everyone was talking forever about nutrition and exercise, and sleep was like, just go to bed earlier, which works for some people, but a lot of people going to bed earlier is not going to work.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's a combination of people taking this more seriously, was reading more about it in the press, suffering from it more and more, burnout increasing, and people talking about it and not being able to keep going, feeling tired, but also wired, which just doesn't make sense. Why can't we
Yeah.
sleep if we're so tired? So I think it's a combination.
And that's great. What didn't I ask, or what did you want to share before we go?
That's a really good question. I also wanted to know what you were up to and also understand how anxiety and sleep and your approach to it. I'm always interested in hearing also from people I learn.
I think for me, the number one thing that I've done to manage the stress of this
Mhm.
time is create. I think for me that has been a outlet. And I do the other things. I watch my sugar now. I started swimming since the beginning of the year, which has been really helpful for me. I always walked, but I wasn't getting a lot of cardio of that magnitude. So that's been really helpful. But I think the big thing has been creating. Can I
Mhm.
write my way out of this? I'm working on a new book, novel, which has been just a way to escape, but still work on topics and themes that I care about, but do it in a less about me kind of way. It's
Mhm.
been just a nice escape. The
Creating
things
for you, that's writing in your case, or
in
painting,
this,
singing.
the
Mhm.
podcast is a
Sure.
creative pursuit for sure. And I think in the beginning when I did the podcast, it was about every week hit it. And I think now I'm just really pursuing speakers that I really want to talk to, find them through my life. I just interviewed Vienna Tang, who I highly recommend. She's a wonderful singer. I reached out to an artist that I saw their exhibit a couple weekends ago. I think
Hmm.
connection for
Hmm.
me has been really important to reduce my anxiety in general.
Hmm.
I think knowing that I'm not alone in my thoughts or my caring or just values. I think values are really
Yes.
important. So that has been really helpful for me.
It's
So
very
thank you.
interesting what you say about connection. And I think people could understand that more during COVID times where we were isolated, even we were cooped up with the whole family. But for most people, distance from society or other humans, and even you could do calls like this on video, it would
Hmm.
help, but not completely replace the in-person experience, because our levels of oxytocin, which has to do with social bonding, pleasure, love, just those types of feelings that keep us bonded was taken away from us. And there were a lot of people struggling with that. And when you don't have enough oxytocin, you can feel really anxious. And I had certainly my share of it in the beginning, the first few months. I
Mm.
could just feel like, why am I anxious like this? What's going on? And
Yeah.
just something also that's interesting that you mentioned that. I wanted to go back on your topic also of creation and being creative, which I was very big believer in. And actually, I do talk about this in my book as well, in The Natural Sleeper, because things like maybe singing, drawing, coloring, playing music, or even just listening to music if you don't play an instrument, have proven to also help with better sleep. Because, first of all, it focuses you on something else, and it's just the good feeling that you feel by doing these things, and therefore feeling more calm. And it helps regulating your nervous system. Now, with singing in particular, I'm really interested in that because my dad's a singer, so is my brother. And I had taken vocal courses, but it wasn't so much to become a singer, but to help with psychology. So when you sing, you basically use your airways, right? So you breathe in and then you breathe out and then you make that sound through your vocal cords. You go exactly over the vagus nerve, which is
Mm.
the switch on, switch off in terms of whether you're going to be relaxing, sleeping, digesting, or if you're going to be active, running, exercising, and just being really active. So the nervous system can switch from one to the other. And one way to do that is activating the vagus nerve, which singing is super helpful for. And you do, and it just all of a sudden you just feel more quiet. Same thing with chanting, same thing. So activating the vagus nerve by singing or chanting is really good as well. The other thing is that when you paint or write or you go into sort of like a flow, and that's a stage that's very it just feels good being in a flow. And you'll hear athletes talk about it, artists talk about it as well. So doing anything that puts you in, you lose a sense of time or like it just feels good. But careful not to be too addicted to it because that flow is also what keeps us watching Netflix for the whole night.
Yeah, I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of, I think sometimes for writing in particular, or even for editing a podcast or whatever, it can be like I can procrastinate about it. And so I find that doing it early in the morning and setting a timer for 25 minutes just to start. And what I usually find is that gets me started, and then
Mhm.
I will go through a couple more 25 minutes or more, depending on my day and the time. But yeah, getting that time, it's amazing how quickly it flies once you get started, but the getting started can be really tough. Mm.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Because we have, so the brain does a calculation in terms of input versus return. So
Yes.
it's interesting because you do it subconsciously. So often you just have to force yourself to just start. And when you start, then it goes. And what are your best tricks? What works for you to fall back? Because if you talked about swimming, you talked about creating. So that's two actually already.
Yeah,
Is there anything else?
I think that keeping the meditation practice going is really important. In the moment of not sleeping, I definitely a body scan, but with the tensing of the muscles in particular,
Mhm.
really helpful. And then I do a Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, and
You
I
do
do
this on
self.
yourself or
I'll
do
do
you
self
need?
Reiki, yeah, which is
Mm,
really helpful for me. And I just actually just had this question. You don't have to be a Reiki master. You can learn how to do
mhm,
Reiki and just invoke the energy for
mhm.
yourself. It does really help because it just clears whatever
I
is
did
stuck.
not know that you could self Reiki.
You
First time I
can.
hear about this.
You can. And
Wow.
actually,
Okay.
Reiki level one is
Mm-hmm.
largely that. You don't really learn symbols in the level one. You really just learn
Mm-hmm.
to get in touch with Reiki. They do an attunement at the end, but you can do Reiki without it. So I think that's important for people to know. And I do teach it because it's really helpful. It's just another way of body scanning, but you're
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
removing energy blocks as you do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's super interesting. But yeah, Reiki, I think I mentioned also in my book, so any sort of energy-based techniques can work for some people. So I personally think, so you were asking me earlier about takeaways, what we talk about. I think it's first accepting that sleep is your friend, not your enemy. And
Mm.
insomnia is not even your enemy either. It's just trying to make you aware that you're not doing something right. So it's a
Hmm.
friend as well. And it's just more of discovering and experimenting to figure out what's wrong. It could be a medical issue, or it could be psychological, it could be physiological, it could be habits. I find that working with a sleep coach can help with that when you get to why. Once you know your why this is happening, just experiment different techniques. This is why I did this book where I have a list of all the things you can do. From if you're geeky and a bit more science driven, you need to see research, then there are techniques for that. Or if you're more energy based or spiritual based, maybe you don't really want to read scientific abstracts about a new piece of research. Maybe something else will work, like Reiki or something else. But the point is, and that's also the second takeaway, is that you are built to be awake usually by day and asleep by night. Everything's already in you. It's just like reconnecting with your processes and your functioning as a human to relearn how to sleep properly. It's all there for most people. Yeah, and experimenting, having a toolkit. Oh, that didn't work. Let me try this, or let me try that. And just giving until you get to what works for you, I think. And yeah, so I am. I could go on and on. You have to stop me, Donna.
No, that's good. That's really good. I think that's a good way to end. I like the idea that this is and it's in your book. It's a natural thing, and we
Cover the
are getting it.
basics.
Cover the basics, but you're also getting,
Mm.
not to be mean to yourself, but you're getting in your own way a little bit when this happens. So it's nice to know that it's in your capability set to do this, and
Yes,
there's ways that you can get there. Well,
there's many ways. And yeah, once you found the way that's inspiring you, that yeah, it's something I could do, or whether it's just sort of go with it. And like you said earlier, the most difficult thing is just starting something else, something new. You
yeah,
get very comfortable in our habits,
yeah.
everyone. I'd say also another really big one when you're asleep in the middle of the night, because you asked me this and I can so relate, but it's also processing. Some of the techniques I talked about are about distracting the mind. You do something that makes you think of something else. Some are about focusing on something, like saying the same neutral word over and over, like you focus. But then the third way is to process all these thoughts. And I don't want this to be underestimated. And processing thoughts could be anything from turning your light, going in a different room, preferably cooler, and start journaling. What's keeping
Mm,
you awake? And then think about how you can process that information. Some things will be in your control. Some things are not going to be in your control. Some things are going to be things that you might be able to influence, but not entirely in your control, but maybe you can influence. And some things are going to be so out of your control, like wars around the world, what's happening now. Maybe there's some things you can get involved if you'd like. Just think about that. Think more about what do I have control over? What can I influence? Let me do that. So that gives you more of a sense of agency, and therefore you feel like sanctions or plan. If this is such a big deal that you're thinking about it while you're trying to sleep, make a plan, schedule things, figure out, okay, this is my strategy to deal with that situation.
yeah,
Put it in the diary, make it real, make it not something that is somewhere in your brain thought, make that a concrete action plan. That will make you feel more in control. Therefore, you'll relax and you'll be able to sleep much easier.
yeah. I find surrender is really important too. That
Mm,
I've done everything I can. It's
mm.
3 o'clock in the morning. There's nothing I can really do right now. Everybody's asleep. So I'm going to surrender this one to the universe and just let it be for now. And that sometimes helps a lot because otherwise you just keep going over it. And like you said, there's a certain amount of accepting and surrender that you have to do with things. So I like to do that
Yes,
myself.
yes. And that would be the one time, acceptable time that I would say, yeah, get out of bed and go deal with that stuff if it's really going to be so urgent, so important, and in your control, and you can't sleep for it, just do it and go back to sleep an hour later, and then you'll find you'll have a much more peaceful sleep. There are so many different approaches. It's really about finding the one that works for you. So much talking about sleep, but I do appreciate the fact that people take it more seriously, which is the number one step. Take your sleep seriously. Sleep is not for the dead. It's not for the wicked. Sleep is for life, to have a better life, a healthier life. It will give you motivation, energy to deal with what you want to deal with. When you don't sleep, what can you do? Not much. You just don't have the energy to even start anything. Sleep is your friend, not your enemy. And I always say this, so sleep is really, it's the secret of youth and being youthful and energetic, it's the secret of just having a better life and being healthier overall, having longevity. So longevity is becoming a really popular topic right now. So aging well.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. It's definitely one of the most important ways to stay healthy. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I
Sure.
always learn so much from you. And again, the book is
The natural sleeper. Yeah, like just it's just digging, and the way I've made it is it almost feels like reading a magazine, and you just sort of can pick. There's an index that can take you to, you can go straight to a technique. There's a graph which I've organized different groups of sleepers, so see where you fit, and then it'll recommend which approaches you can use to help sleeping. And if you need coaching or you need help or you work at a business, that you want employees to improve their sleep for productivity at work, then you can call me as well because I do workshops also in the corporate setting.
and I think you're positive and empowering about it. I heard, I guess it was probably in a TV series, but there's so many things that are normal activities that we just somehow have lost our way in. And really eating and sleeping and how much we drink and how much we exercise. All of these things are just like you're putting, you said natural things, but we get far from them. Uh,
No, and we could reach out for the tech or whatever new supplement that has this or that. And it's fine, you can take it, it might not work. Like for melatonin, for example, a lot of people feel a difference at the beginning, but not long term. Also, I mean, you're US based, you can buy this over the counter, but it's been shown that the amount of melatonin is not necessarily what's on the cover, like on the packaging, or even from pill to pill. So if you're going to get melatonin, it's best you get it as a subscription.
I didn't
That
know
was
that.
me. Yeah,
I
and
didn't know that.
get medical graded melatonin. I've tried both day and night. No jokes, actually,
Wow.
no pun intended, but what a difference.
It was so good
Yes.
to be with you again. I learned so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. Thank you for having me and also helping spread the message about it. So, thank you.
That's all for today. If you want to learn more about Julie and her book, those links will be on the show notes. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, drop a review, or share it with your friends and family. That's the best way to get it in the hands of those who may benefit. Bye now.